What is up? Do you have things bothering you from the past? Maybe things you just can't let go? Maybe, grudges you're holding, that you just kind of come up whenever you're doing stuff and get in the way, or maybe you're trying to like, past experiences that just keep kind of dictating your future. Well, today you're in luck. We're going to talk about why letting go feels impossible and how to actually do it. And we want to give a shout out to Mike W. because this is actually a listener suggested episode, which is awesome. Thanks, Mike. And, on a side note, if you guys have any suggestions, please leave you can leave a comment in YouTube or you can email us. Our email is right in the show notes and let us know what your suggestions are and we'll do a show about it. But anyway, with that, this is the Existential Podcast. I'm Dan, my buddy Randy. What's up, Randy?
Yo, Danny.
Yes, I like this actually suggestion. Because I think we all kind of struggle with this, especially like letting go of the past, grudges, things that like, because I think we don't realize how much that kind of stuff actually controls our future and our present. Like those and it's high emotion stuff. Like grudges or like, I when he mentioned this episode, I was thinking not so much of grudges, but more of like, past failures and stuff, things like that like are hard to
Mm.
let go of. And that also kind of, they change how you think about yourself so that it's harder to do things in the future too, or in the present, I mean, the now, whatever. Yeah, I don't know. What do you think about this? Like
Yeah, this
grudges?
is this is a big one because we do hold on to a lot of stuff, and not only that, but not only is it bad enough that we hold on to this stuff, but then we're made to feel wrong or guilty or ashamed because we hold on to it and because we
Yeah.
can't just let it go like some freaking Zen wizard. And it's
Yeah.
just like, oh, as if I'm not dragging around all this baggage. Now I have to pile my own stuff on top of that just because I'm not good enough to let it go. Like, come on.
Yeah, and it is funny because like you think of like like the Zen masters and stuff. They're living in like a very different world than we are in a certain sense. Like yeah, they're in the world, but like they're also in an isolated community. It's so different. I feel like that's one of the hard things about letting go is that you're constantly reminded of the things all the time that bother you. Like if it's a grudge, you might, say you have a grudge against somebody you might see friends that know that person and stuff. All those things are reminders, right? Of that grudge, of that wrong that you suffered or whatever. Or, if it's a past failure, anytime you do something right, that's gonna come up. So it's like you're constantly reminded of it and you have to deal with it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so you've read a bit of Feeling Great, and he talks about the resistance, internal resistance that we all have to changing. Because basically we're incentivized to do things. And so if we're not letting go of the past, if we're not forgiving grudges, well, there's a couple things. One, it serves us in a way. Like maybe we don't want to let go of the past. Maybe we don't want to forgive the grudges because if we did, that would mean what? I'm weak. I let people walk all over me. I'm and like what actual holding on to the grudges and not letting go of the past, what good stuff does this say about you and your values? Like if you keep beating yourself up because you made mistakes, maybe it means that it's very important to you that you do your best. Like
Yeah.
that's a really good value. Because somebody who wouldn't beat themselves up, they're doing shitty work. And I guarantee you probably work with a whole bunch of these people and you're like, how do you do that? It's because they don't care. They're like they make
Yeah.
mistakes and they're like, hey, next thing, let's go mess something else up.
Well, that's part of the problem, right? It's hard caring. It is hard caring. It's also hard, I think having values, especially in this world now, because it seems like nobody does. So like, and that's the other thing I think with grudges that are hard too, because people also will look at you like they don't understand because they don't understand like that you have values that you care about that maybe somebody stepped on, or maybe, like you said too, right? You don't want to look appear weak or something or whatever it is. But yeah, it's really hard, but these do change a lot. And I also like that in Feeling Great where he talks about, like what else does it say about you? Because I also wonder too, like if we also self-identify in a certain way with some of these ideas, and so change would mean changing our core person, right, in some way. And that's hard to do. Especially whether it's core values or like a core self-concept, something like that. It makes it really
Mhm.
difficult to actually, instantiate a change.
Yeah, because we like to be consistent. Like when we say that we're a certain way, we want to stay that way. I'm
Yeah.
struggling with that right now. I'm trying to change a little bit of how I dress, and it's tough because like I identify with how I dress. And so trying to change that, it almost triggers me because it's like, you know,
Yeah. Oh, it looks
I think
weird. Isn't
there's
it funny how it looks weird too? Because you're used to, you're used to looking in the mirror and seeing yourself a certain way, and then you like try to. I always have a hard time. I think we went to a wedding not long ago, and like getting dressed up for it, like I had such a hard time, dude, finding something because I was like, all this looks weird on me because I don't wear it ever. So
it
like
is
none of it.
confrontational.
It is. It's
Like,
weird. Yeah, it's very funny like how it works because like I just like yeah, like the suit looked fine, whatever. Like I mean, it was a suit, I didn't look bad in it by any stretch, but like at the same time, I just don't feel comfortable in it, I guess, or like it's
hmm
not like me, and so it's yeah, it takes a while to adjust to it. It is funny, isn't that?
hmm
How it is? It's very weird.
yeah,
But we do. I think to
absolutely.
your point though, we like things consistent. We like knowing what things are going to be like the next day. And I think this is also part of it is we are really not, we resist change a lot, like a lot. Even if it's a crappy situation, we are aware of the crappy situation. We know what it is, and we're more likely to kind of like treat that as normal than want to change because those changes are always going to be uncomfortable, even if they're positive, even if they're better. So like take like letting go of a grudge, like if that grudge is a big part of like, your values, your identity, whatever, letting go of it's going to be hard, even though it's going to be a positive experience for you. That's what's
Here's
funny.
here's the interesting thing, and this is another thing that I've gotten from David Burns and all of his books and podcasts and everything. So like letting go of grudges means that you're the one who's going to have to change. You're the one who's going to have to be
Yeah,
wrong. The other person is going to stay the same. And this is like, it's really interesting because we see this like huge battle in politics nowadays where everybody's trying to convince the other people to change the way that they think or that they're wrong. And
yeah,
it's
which is
like,
not going to happen.
well, would you change the way that you think and you're wrong? No, 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 because I'm right. They're wrong. And it's
Yeah,
like, well, if you're not going to change, they're not going to change. But it's the same thing in relationships and in grudges. So like I had an ongoing grudge that I was like holding on to by might and may for a long time until I started listening to David Burns stuff. And I was like, you know what? The only way that I'm ever going to get through this is if I admit that I was wrong and I change me.
yeah,
And it released.
yeah.
But it was one of those things where I'm right. They're wrong. And it's just silly. Yeah.
Well, at the end of the day, does it actually matter anyway, too? A lot of this, I think, is funny. Like, we make things out to be so much more than they are a lot of times. And not to discount anybody's feelings or anything, but it's just true, right? I think we do. We all do this, right? It's because we're experiencing it, it matters the most, or because it's my values, I'm right, right? Everybody else is wrong because they don't see it my way, those kinds of things. But I think in the case of a grudge too, it's like, how is it helping you? Like try journaling too is helpful in this case, I think. Write down, like, think back to like what triggered it, what caused this thing. Do you need this person in your life? Is that even necessary? Because, you can forgive a grudge and also just not talk to the person again if they don't change. I mean, that's totally doable, right? Sometimes
Mhm.
relationships end. But try writing it down and really examining it too, because I think sometimes trying to look at it from both perspectives can help you see like maybe where, you're not seeing their side of it too. And if it is something you want to like kind of a friendship or a relationship you want to keep, right? That can be a way to kind of see it from their perspective too, and maybe find some common ground where you can apologize and forgive and move on from it.
Yeah, and the cool thing is you don't need to. So like
Yeah,
what I said in the beginning with it being like us being ashamed and everything, like people just pile guilt and shame
I
on
know.
us.
It's
It's
so
like, how
stupid.
could you not be a perfectly enlightened human being? What's wrong with you?
It's like
And it's
because we're
like
animals.
it's because I'm a human. Like
Yeah.
I'm by definition, I'm flawed. I make mistakes. I have like a whole bunch of different aspects of me. And it's like all these knots just all over the place. Everything's complicated. And but like we're made to feel wrong because we hold grudges. And it's like, you know,
Which
in
is
life we
funny
can
too, though,
either
because but real quick, which is funny
yeah,
too, because like I love when people pile that crap on other people, like this perfection idea, because it's like, dude, nothing in the world or that people do is perfect at all. It's all a total freaking mess. So like, why would you expect, like it's so ridiculous.
mhm.
It really is.
Yeah, and the people who pretend that everything is perfect, they're just hiding it from everyone
Yeah,
else.
yeah,
Yeah. And so like in relationships and in everything else, we can accept it the way it is. We can try and improve it, or we could get rid of it,
yeah.
you know? And that's pretty much for relationships as well. And there's nothing wrong with having grudges. I mean, I've held grudges for I'm still angry at people from elementary school. I go to the gym and I like lift heavy weights and I'm just angry at these people from elementary school. And this was like 40 years ago.
Yeah, it's a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird. It's one of the things I don't hold a lot of grudges, I guess. I don't, but like, I have a lot of other problems. So it's not like I'm not saying anything against that. I just think, but it's interesting because like, I think I have a tendency just to be like, well, whatever, like, I'll just move on and forget about the person, which is
Hmm.
maybe not the best way either. I don't know. But yeah, I think there's a lot of options here. But I think one of the things to look at too is, and I always ask myself this, like, how is this helping me? Or is
Mm.
it doing anything positive? Because most of the time, this is like it's getting in the way of our lives. It's causing anxiety, depression, stress, whatever else.
Mm.
Maybe we're not able to move forward because of it, or maybe it's ruining a relationship. Like a grudge could be something that could be, if it's something that could be resolved, resolve it. Because what's the point of, if you have a long-standing relationship that you care about, like what matters more in this case, you know?
Yeah. I know. We talked about this a lot, this like concept of like when somebody else does something, it's a character flaw. But when I do it, it's some like
Yeah,
situational thing that caused me to do it. And so one thing that I enjoy doing nowadays is I try and pretend that for the other person, it was a situational thing, not a character thing, like a situational thing that caused them to do that. And I'm like, well, under what situations could they possibly have done that? And it helps me to see like the humanity in them and helps me step into their shoes because guaranteed it was just some type of situational thing. Most people
yeah.
aren't these like absolute sociopaths. So, yeah.
No, I don't think, yeah, I think it'd be wrong to assume that people are like that or that it's like most things I think too aren't necessarily like, even though it might be something mean said to us or something mean done to us, a lot of times that's not even the intent, right? It's because they are having a problem. They're struggling through something and you just happen to be there.
Dude, I see it in myself nowadays. Like the other day I was at the gym and I was just in a bad mood and I just like somebody said something to me and I just like bit their head off. And I was just like, what am I doing? Like they probably like I know I'm
You're
having a
like,
bad day,
damn,
but what am I
dude.
doing?
Yeah. It's fine. I noticed that with myself too. I don't know what it is, and maybe I don't know, maybe it's getting older or something, but like, when I am in a bad mood, I have a hard time like keeping it down. Do you know what I mean? Like not letting
Yeah.
everybody else know that I'm being bitchy. It's like it's really funny. I don't
It's
know
like I
why.
worked hard for this bad mood. I'm gonna get everything out of it that I
I'm gonna
possibly
enjoy it
can.
and I'm gonna make everybody else
Yeah.
miserable, damn it.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is kind of funny.
But it was a cool learning experience when that happened because I saw myself doing it. Like I knew I was in a bad mood. And
Yeah.
I was thinking to myself I should probably just stay home, but I'm like I want to go work out and this helps me get through it anyways. And so I went there and I bit this guy's head off and I saw myself as I was doing it and it was kind of like a learning experience for me because now I see if somebody does that to me, I would be like they're probably just having a bad day.
Yeah. And most of the time that's what it is. And I think especially too, like in the world we live in with the amount of BS and information and the amount of the amount of things trying to raise our emotions at all times between social media, news, and all this crap, and then just talking to people because everybody talked about like I think people are probably like geared up already to like 90% of the time, It's like so little things become these big things that really aren't that big of a deal. Or like, and again, I think like this is where like journaling and stuff can be really helpful to try and put yourself in both sides of it. Like, what did I do? And how did I respond? How did I see the situation? And imagine like if I was the other person, if I was in their shoes, what would the situation look like to me? And does that give you some sort of common ground or middle ground that you can work out and see like maybe you were wrong. I mean, that's always possible. Or maybe, it was just something you can forgive because it was ridiculous, or you can see that they maybe had a bad day or something. But yeah, I think that's a good
Mhm.
approach.
Yeah. And if you want more help on getting over grudges and letting go of the past, particular if they revolve around other people, then there's a book called Feeling Good Together, which has a whole thing about relationship journaling and
Oh, nice.
all the stuff you need in order to do that. It's a very good book for all that stuff. Yeah.
We know what always cracked me up with relationships is like we're never no one's taught how like ever given any real instruction on how to do it. And it's kind of funny when you think about it, because like think about like, people that get married or they're with a long-term partner or just long-term friends, right? Like it's not always easy keeping those relationships going because there's always going to be bad points and there's going to be difficulties and there's going to be times where like especially when you're living with somebody, right? There's going to be times where there's stress that's caused not because of the people involved, but because of the situation, like, paying bills, stuff like that. All that comes up, right? So it's like
Mhm.
it takes a lot of effort, I think, to remove yourself from that immediate situation to see the larger picture and also what you value about the relationship to keep it. And I think that takes a lot of work. We're not naturally like just gifted at this. It's why
Yeah,
they
but
had like
like
elders in old villages back in
that's
the
what I
day,
was just
right?
gonna
Oh,
say. Like you grew up in a society with people who have been doing it for a long time and who have a lot more life experience. Nowadays you don't. And so
I always wonder
every
that.
generation has to figure it out on their own.
I was watching this was a while ago, but I was watching a documentary. It was on like one of these Aboriginal tribes or whatever that's still living like that. And they were talking, I think it was in the Amazon, but they were talking about like how they still have these tribal elders and like, when certain issues come up, like they'll go talk to them to get it resolved. And a lot of it was interpersonal issues. And I think it is interesting because you have these older people who are like, it doesn't really matter. Like that
Hmm.
doesn't, but like to the people, the younger people, it does a lot. And I think it's interesting that perspective, but you're right. Like, we don't get that anymore. It's rare that you get that. It's rare to go talk to other people about it. And it makes it's kind of like we're all navigating this alone, which makes it a lot harder.
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I mean, it feels like you have so much more perspective just talking with anyone to begin with because it's someone else's problem, not your problem. So already it gives you a lot more perspective. But then if you think about somebody who's younger than you when you're talking with them and you've been through the same type of thing, like think about talking with a teenager about like some like heartthrob type,
Yeah. Yeah.
romance thing, and you're like, oh yeah, don't worry about it. Like I know this is life and death right now, but don't worry about it. And they'd be like, no, you have no idea. And you're like, trust me.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
Like
it's like you can kind of see that stuff because you have the time and the perspective and everything like that. And that's what the elders have on you nowadays. Is like they have all this life experience, but yeah, we miss out on that.
that's another actually good point too before we end, which is talk to other people. Like if you have somebody somebody you are friends with, talk to
Or
them about
even
it.
if you don't,
Yeah.
you could prompt ChatGPT
Oh,
to
you could also
pretend
do
that it's a
that.
village elder
Yeah, you could do that.
to
Yeah.
give you life advice. That's actually brilliant.
That could work really well. It could, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's actually can be very helpful.
I think I'm gonna do that later today.
It's funny because like I was actually reading a report that people are getting very good results from that for like counseling and stuff. And part of it is because it's totally private. And, it's
Yep.
like you can say whatever you
Yeah.
want, and it's always nice.
Yeah. And it's really good for relationship advice too. Like
Yeah.
I was talking with a friend and he actually asked ChatGPT how to break up with a girl that he didn't want to continue with. And it was actually like very, very good advice. I was like, wow, they really thought about
Well, it's got
that.
all
Yeah.
it's
All the
got
world's
all
information.
all the world's writings and
Yeah.
love poems and everything. So it's pretty good at that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Holy
funny.
cow.
Well, you want to add anything else to this?
No, that's all. I think we solved everything. So
Yeah,
no more
right.
grudges, no more problems, letting go.
It's
It,
hard.
I would say, like, most importantly, like, give yourself some space. If you feel pressured that you have to let go of something, just be like, uh, first,
Yeah.
first scenario is if I am never able to let go of this and I have to live with this for the rest of my life, how would I go about doing that? And once you're okay with that, then you can kind of decide if it's something that you want to let go of.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's
Yeah.
also a good point too, which is like you don't have there's no rule that you have to let go of these things either.
Huh.
But it is important, I think, to look at like it is important to examine it, right? Look at your values, look at why you have this and how it's affecting you. And if it's because I always think too, if the consequences of it are causing trouble or pain for you, then you should probably figure out a way around it and get rid of it. But otherwise, yeah, you don't have to do anything. It's always
I don't have to
possible.
do anything. Yeah.
Yeah. So there you have it then. What was the title again?
Something about problems,
Ah, there you go.
letting go,
And why letting go feels
grudges.
impossible and how to actually do it. I hope you guys enjoyed
Mhm.
this episode. You can check us out on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. And if you have episode suggestions, like Mike did, feel free to leave, a comment on YouTube or, email us. It's in the show notes. We'll be back later this week with another episode, though. Until then, later, Andy.
Later, Danny.